runs on ships. 90% of everything you use, fuel, food, electronics, medicine, moves across oceans. And for decades, there was one assumption holding that system together. Commercial shipping stays neutral, even when politics turn hostile. That assumption is now collapsing. Quietly, methodically, and dangerously. Over the last few months, something fundamental changed in the world's oceans. Not because of a declared war. Not because of missiles or blockades. But because economic pressure crossed a line and came back in a form the West didn't expect. This isn't about a single country flexing power. It's about a system breaking. The illusion of neutral seas. For most of modern history, maritime trade lived in a protected bubble. Even during the Cold War, tankers and cargo ships were treated as untouchable arteries of the global economy. Yes, there were rules. Yes, there were treaties. But more importantly, there was restraint. That restraint depended on one idea. No major power would turn routine commerce into a battlefield. That idea no longer holds. How economic pressure became physical power. When Western nations imposed sweeping sanctions on Russia after the Ukraine invasion, the strategy looked airtight. Financial isolation, energy price controls, shipping insurance restrictions. On paper, it was elegant. Russia could sell oil, but only under Western-defined conditions. Access to shipping lanes, insurance, ports, and payments all flowed through systems dominated by the U.S. and its allies. This wasn't just economic pressure. It was control of the plumbing of global trade. At first, Russia absorbed the hit. Then it adapted. New buyers. New routes. New financial channels. But adaptation wasn't the endgame. It was preparation. When enforcement crossed a threshold. By late 2024, sanctions enforcement stopped being abstract. Ships were boarded. Cargo was inspected. Compliance was enforced not just with paperwork, but with naval presence. From a Western legal standpoint, it was justified. From Moscow's perspective, it was a precedent. Because once enforcement becomes physical, the rules stop being neutral. They become tools. Strategic mirroring, using the same logic back. Russia's response wasn't loud. It wasn't impulsive. It was legalistic. By reframing incidents as criminal investigations rather than military actions, Russia created space to act without declaring escalation. Ships weren't seized in war. Crews weren't captured. Everything was wrapped in procedure, jurisdiction, and paperwork. That distinction matters because it blurs the line between law enforcement and coercion. And once that line blurs, any ship becomes vulnerable. Why this should worry the United States? This isn't about sympathy. It's about consequences. If commercial vessels can be detained under contested legal frameworks, then global trade loses its predictability. Insurance prices spike. Routes reroute. Costs rise invisibly until inflation shows up at home. Gas prices. Supply shortages. Manufacturing delays. This is how geopolitical risk becomes household economics. And the U.S. is not insulated. American-operated ships, allied logistics networks, energy routes feeding Europe and Asia, all rely on the assumption that international waters remain functionally neutral. That assumption is now being tested. The bigger danger, the precedent. Here's the part policymakers fear most, but rarely say out loud. Others are watching. China. Iran. Regional powers with grievances of their own. They are studying the logic, not the politics. If sanctions enforcement justifies boarding ships. If inspections justify detentions. If legal frameworks can be stretched far enough. Then maritime power becomes a bargaining tool everywhere. Not just in one conflict. A world of fragmented trade. The immediate effects are already visible. Shipping insurance near contested waters has become prohibitively expensive. Some routes are effectively unusable. Companies are redesigning supply chains not for efficiency, but for survivability.